I nearly dropped my drink. Not because someone bumped into me, not because the music suddenly got louder, but because my boss had just walked through the front door of the biggest gay club in Seattle, and his eyes locked onto mine. For one terrifying second, neither of us moved. The flashing neon lights painted his face blue and purple while the crowd danced between us. My stomach sank. This can't be happening. Tomorrow morning I had a presentation. Tomorrow morning he would be sitting across the conference table. Tomorrow morning we'd have to pretend this never happened. I looked away first. Maybe if I disappeared into the crowd. Ethan. My heart stopped. His voice. Right behind me. I turned slowly. Adrian Brooks stood only a few feet away. Still wearing the expensive black jacket I'd seen him wear to board meetings. Still impossibly composed. Only now, he looked nervous. Not CEO nervous. Human nervous. I didn't expect to see you here, neither did I. 3 months earlier, Seattle had always looked different in photos. More colorful. More accepting. More alive. That's exactly why I'd accepted the job offer from Brooks Creative. Leaving Ohio wasn't easy. Leaving my family had been even harder. My parents knew I was gay. They just never wanted to talk about it. Every phone call felt polite, careful, like everyone was pretending an important part of me didn't exist. Seattle felt different. For the first time, I could actually breathe. Brooks Creative occupied the top 4 floors of a glass building overlooking Elliott Bay. The company specialized in branding, advertising, and digital campaigns. Creative, fast-paced, competitive. Everyone warned me about one person before I even started. The CEO is intimidating. He notices everything. He remembers everyone's mistakes. Naturally, I expected a monster. Instead, I met Adrian Brooks. He greeted every new employee personally, shook hands, remembered names, asked about career goals. When my turn came, "Welcome to Brooks Creative, Ethan." He smiled. It wasn't forced. It was genuine. That somehow made him even harder to read. Over the next 3 months, I barely spoke to him outside meetings. Not because he was rude, because he was my boss. And he had this impossible ability to make every room feel focused the second he walked in. He never raised his voice, never embarrassed anyone, never played favorites. People respected him because he respected them first, which made me admire him, probably more than I should. Nothing inappropriate, just admiration. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. Friday night changed everything. My coworker Noah had been begging me for weeks. "You've lived here 3 months. Yes. You still haven't been to Pulse?"
I'm tired.
"You say that every Friday. I like staying home. You also own exactly 1 hoodie and refuse to flirt." "I don't refuse. You absolutely refuse." He sighed dramatically. "I'm saving your social life." 2 hours later, I found myself standing outside Pulse, the city's most popular gay nightclub. Music shook the sidewalk. People laughed outside. Couples held hands without looking over their shoulders. Something I'd almost never seen growing up inside. The lights flashed. Drag performances filled the stage. Friends danced. Strangers smiled. Nobody seemed afraid to exist. For the first time since moving, I actually relaxed. Noah disappeared almost immediately after recognizing someone, leaving me alone near the bar, which honestly, I preferred. I ordered 1 drink, watched the crowd, wondered if maybe this city really could become home. Then, the front doors opened. A tall man stepped inside. Dark jacket, perfect posture, expensive watch. I recognized him instantly. Adrian. Here? He looked around slowly, almost like he wasn't sure he'd made the right decision. Then, our eyes met. His expression changed. Not anger, not embarrassment, recognition, followed by something much softer. Panicked, turned around, started walking toward the opposite side of the club. "Just leave. Pretend you never saw him. Pretend none of this happened." "Ethan." I froze. His footsteps stopped beside me. I wasn't expecting to see someone from work. I laughed awkwardly. I was about to say exactly the same thing. For a moment, neither of us knew what to say. The CEO and his employee, standing in the middle of a crowded gay nightclub, both suddenly aware that the carefully separated worlds of work and personal life had just collided. Adrian broke the silence first. "You don't have to worry." I looked at him. "What happens outside the office stays outside the office." Something about the way he said it made me believe him. For the first time all night, I smiled. "I appreciate that." He nodded. "So?" His eyes drifted toward the dance floor. "Is this your first time here?" I blinked. How had he guessed? "You can tell? The way you're holding your drink." I looked down. Apparently I was gripping it like it might save my life. He laughed quietly, and somehow, my terrifying boss suddenly looked like someone I'd never met before. Not the CEO, just Adrian, a man standing alone in a crowded room, looking almost as uncertain as I felt the following Monday. I convinced myself the weekend had never happened. That was the plan anyway. At exactly 9 o'clock, I walked into the conference room carrying my laptop and a cup of coffee that suddenly felt much too small to hide behind. The marketing team was already gathering around the table. People chatted about weekend hikes, baseball games, and overpriced brunch spots. It sounded like any other Monday. Then the room fell quiet. Adrian Brooks walked in. He wore a charcoal suit, his expression calm and unreadable, with a tablet tucked under one arm. Every conversation stopped for a heartbeat before naturally picking back up. He greeted everyone with a polite, "Good morning." When his eyes briefly met mine, there wasn't even the slightest hint that we'd stood face to face in a crowded gay club less than 48 hours earlier. No smile. No awkwardness. No secret understanding. Just a professional nod. It should have relieved me. Instead, I felt strangely disappointed. The meeting focused on pitching a rebranding campaign for a nonprofit that supported homeless LGBTQ+ youth. It was exactly the kind of project I'd hoped to work on when I moved to Seattle. Ideas bounced around the room, but something felt safe, predictable. Everyone seemed afraid to take a real creative risk. I hesitated, then slowly raised my hand. "I think we're focusing too much on the struggle," I said carefully. "What if we focused on belonging instead?" The room turned toward me. I swallowed. We always tell stories about survival, but maybe people need to see joy, friendship, and hope. Show the life someone is fighting to build, not just what they're escaping. Silence. For a moment, I wondered if I just embarrassed myself. Then Adrian leaned back in his chair. "Go on." His voice was calm, encouraging. I explained the campaign in more detail, describing visuals, slogans, and community events that celebrated chosen family rather than tragedy. When I finished, nobody spoke. Adrian looked around the room. "I think Ethan just gave us the direction we've been missing." A few people nodded. Someone started taking notes. The meeting moved on. But for the rest of the morning, I couldn't stop replaying those words. He listened, not because I was his employee, because he believed the idea deserved to be heard. Around lunchtime, I escaped to the rooftop terrace with a sandwich. Seattle's gray clouds hung low over Elliott Bay, and the cool breeze helped clear my head. "You always eat alone?" I turned. Adrian stood a respectful distance away, holding a coffee instead of lunch. "Oh!" I almost stood up automatically. "You don't have to do that," he said with a small smile. "We're not in a board meeting." I sat back down, feeling awkward. I usually come up here when I need quiet. So do I. For a second, neither of us spoke. The city stretched beneath us. Cars crawled across the streets. Ferries crossed the water. Felt strangely peaceful. "I wanted to compliment your presentation this morning," Adrian finally said. "Thank you. You noticed something the rest of us missed. I guess I just know what it feels like to want stories that aren't always sad." His expression softened. "I know that feeling." The words slipped out before I could stop them. "So, have you always lived in Seattle?" He chuckled lightly. "That's safer than asking if I come to Pulse often." Heat rushed into my face. I mean, I'm kidding." He laughed quietly. The tension disappeared almost instantly. I moved here about 10 years ago, he explained. Started the company with 4 employees and too much confidence. And now I have 180 employees. I looked at him. That's impressive. It mostly means I attend more meetings. I laughed, surprised both of us. For the first time, our conversation didn't feel like it belonged between a CEO and an employee. It felt like 2 people sharing lunch. Then Adrian glanced at his watch. I should get back. He took a step away before pausing. Ethan. Yeah. What I said Saturday still stands. I frowned. What happens outside the office stays outside the office. I nodded. I appreciate that. So do I. Over the next few weeks, something subtle changed. Not at work. Professionally, nothing crossed the line. He never singled me out. Never gave me easier assignments. If anything, he challenged me more than anyone else. Push this concept further. Don't settle for your first draft. I know you can make this stronger. First, I thought he was being hard on me. Then I realized he gave the same level of attention to work he believed had potential. It wasn't favoritism. It was trust. Oddly enough, that meant more. Outside of work, though, Seattle began feeling smaller. One Thursday evening, I stopped at a neighborhood bookstore. While browsing the fiction section, I heard a familiar voice. I had a feeling I'd find you here. I turned. Adrian stood a few feet away, holding 3 novels under one arm. You read romance? I asked before thinking. He raised an eyebrow. I also cry during Pixar movies. I laughed. I wasn't expecting that answer. Neither was I. He glanced at the shelf. What are you looking for? I'm not sure. He picked up a novel. This one. You've read it. Twice. It must be good. It reminds people that love isn't about grand gestures. What is it about? He thought for a second. Choosing someone. The simplicity of his answer stayed with me. Neither of us mentioned work. Neither of us mentioned the club. Instead, we wandered through the bookstore discussing favorite authors, terrible movie adaptations, and why coffee always tasted better when it rained. Nearly an hour passed before either of us noticed. A woman pushing a stroller smiled as she walked by. You two make a cute couple. My heart stopped. Adrian blinked. The woman continued walking before either of us could respond. Silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable, just new. Finally, Adrian smiled awkwardly. I should probably let you finish shopping. Yeah. Good night, Ethan. Good night. As he disappeared down the sidewalk, I realized something dangerous. I wasn't just admiring him anymore. I was beginning to look forward to seeing him. And that terrified me. The next morning, everything changed again. I walked into the office expecting another normal Friday. Instead, whispers followed me through the hallway. 2 coworkers abruptly stopped talking when I approached. One glanced toward Adrian's office. The other looked at me. Then they exchanged a knowing smile. My stomach tightened. Had someone seen us together? Or was I imagining things? At exactly 10 o'clock, an email appeared in my inbox. From Adrian Brooks. Subject: Please stop by my office when you're free. My pulse quickened. I stared at the screen for several long seconds. The rumors, the bookstore, the club. Every worst-case scenario crashed through my mind. Taking a slow breath, I stood, straightened my shirt, and walked toward the CEO's office, completely unaware that the conversation waiting behind that door was about to test every professional boundary we'd promised never to cross. Every pair of eyes seemed to follow me as I crossed the office. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it wasn't. I stopped outside Adrian's glass office and knocked twice. Come in. His voice was as calm as ever. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. He looked up from a stack of campaign drafts and smiled politely. Have a seat. I obeyed, trying not to overthink every second of silence. Finally, he slid a folder across the desk. I've been reviewing everyone's performance from the last quarter. I blinked. That wasn't what I'd expected. You've exceeded every goal we set for your position. Oh, I'd like you to become the lead creative for the Horizon campaign. For a moment, I simply stared at him. Me? You earned it. But there are people here with years more experience. There are. He folded his hands. They're also the first people who recommended you. The knot in my stomach loosened. This wasn't favoritism. It wasn't about the club. It wasn't even about him. I'd actually earned it. I won't let you down. I know. His confidence in me felt almost heavier than praise. As I stood to leave, Adrian spoke again. One more thing. I turned. I'd like us to keep our interactions outside the office limited. The words landed harder than I expected. He noticed my expression immediately. It's not because I don't enjoy talking with you. Then why? Because people notice things. I glanced through the glass wall toward the open office. So the rumors are real. He nodded once. I've spent years building trust with this company, and I don't want to become the reason anyone questions your integrity. He looked at me for a long moment. Thank you. By lunchtime, I learned how quickly office gossip could grow. No one accused us directly. Instead, they asked harmless questions. You and Adrian know each other outside work? Didn't I see you downtown? Funny coincidence, huh? I answered honestly. We ran into each other. Which was true. What I didn't say was how much I'd enjoyed those conversations. The following week became one of the busiest of my career. The Horizon campaign consumed every department. Late nights became normal. Pizza boxes replaced healthy dinners. Coffee practically became another member of the team. One evening, I was still working when I noticed the office had gone unusually quiet. I looked around. Almost everyone had left, except Adrian. His office light was still on. Without thinking, I grabbed 2 coffees from the kitchen. I knocked gently. He looked exhausted. Dark circles rested beneath his eyes. His tie had disappeared hours ago. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked human. I brought coffee. He smiled. You're either very kind or trying to keep your boss awake. A little of both. He accepted the cup. Thanks. I glanced toward the city outside his window. Seattle glittered beneath the rain. You should go home, I said. So should you. I only stayed because the campaign matters. So did I. We both laughed. Then silence settled between us. Not awkward. Comfortable. Adrian finally spoke. You know what people don't tell you about becoming successful? I shook my head. It gets lonely. The confession surprised me. I thought CEOs had glamorous lives. They have calendars. I laughed. And meetings. Too many. And investors. The worst. His smile faded slightly. Most of my friends slowly became business contacts. What about family? They're back east. You don't visit? Not often. The room grew quieter. What about relationships? He looked into his coffee. There was someone. Past tense. I didn't ask more. He answered anyway. We were together for 6 years. I waited. I thought we'd spend our lives together. What happened? He wanted a quieter life. And you? I chose the company. The honesty in his voice hurt more than any dramatic story could have. I told myself I'd make more time later. He smiled sadly. There wasn't a later. I didn't know what to say. Some losses couldn't be fixed with comforting words.
I'm sorry.
So am I. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Not the CEO. Not the confident leader everyone admired. The man who still carried guilt years later. It explained so much. Why he kept emotional distance. Why he guarded his private life. Why every decision seemed so carefully measured. Saturday afternoon, Noah convinced me to visit a weekend street market. Halfway through browsing handmade art, someone called my name. Ethan? I turned. Adrian. He was wearing jeans and a navy sweater instead of a tailored suit. Without the office around him, he looked years younger. Noah looked between us. You know each other? We work together, Adrian answered before I could. Noah's eyes widened slightly. The famous boss. I groaned. Please ignore him. I'm trying, Adrian replied with a grin. Noah checked his phone dramatically. Oh wow. I narrowed my eyes. What? My roommate just texted. You don't have a roommate. I do now. Before either of us could stop him, he walked away. I'll catch up later, traitor. Adrian laughed. I think he planned that. He absolutely planned that. For the next hour, we wandered through the market. We sampled local coffee, argued over which food truck had the best tacos, laughed at a street magician whose tricks kept failing. Everything felt easy, natural, dangerously natural. As sunset painted the sky orange, we found ourselves sitting on a bench overlooking the water. Neither of us rushed to leave. I forgot what this feels like, Adrian admitted. What? Spending time with someone without checking my phone every 5 minutes. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then turned it face down. It can wait. I smiled. That's progress it is. A cool breeze drifted off the bay. Without thinking, I shivered. Adrian noticed. He quietly slipped off his light jacket. You'll freeze. I can't take your jacket. You can. It's cold. So are you. He gently placed it over my shoulders. His fingers brushed my arm for barely a second. It shouldn't have meant anything. But somehow, it meant everything. Neither of us pulled away. We simply looked at each other. The city disappeared. The noise faded. There was only the space between us. Just as Adrian seemed about to say something, Ethan, a familiar voice shattered the moment. We both turned. Standing 20 feet away was Claire Dawson, the company's head of human resources. She wasn't alone. 2 employees from the office stood beside her, carrying shopping bags. Claire's eyes moved from Adrian to his jacket around my shoulders, then back to me. No one spoke. No one had to. The expressions on their faces said enough. By Monday morning, the whispers wouldn't just be rumors anymore. They would have a story. And for the first time since meeting Adrian, I realized our biggest obstacle wasn't our feelings. It was the world waiting to judge them. Monday morning arrived with a silence that felt louder than any alarm clock. The elevator doors opened onto the 23rd floor, and the conversations around the coffee machine stopped almost instantly. Not dramatically, just long enough for me to notice. Then everyone smiled. Too quickly. Morning, Ethan. Hey, good weekend. I answered with the same polite smile I'd practiced in the mirror. Yeah, pretty quiet. It was a terrible lie. By 10 o'clock, I understood exactly how fast gossip spread. People weren't accusing anyone. They didn't have to. I caught fragments of conversations as I walked past. They were definitely together. Maybe that's why he got promoted. I heard they've known each other for months. Every sentence hit like another stone in my stomach. The worst part wasn't what they believed. It was that I couldn't defend myself without making everything worse. At 11, an email landed in every manager's inbox. Mandatory leadership meeting, conference room A. A few minutes later, another message appeared. Ethan, could you stop by HR afterward? My chest tightened. Claire Dawson greeted me with a professional smile. Please have a seat. Her office overlooked the harbor, but today I barely noticed the view. She folded her hands on the desk. I want to be clear before we begin. This isn't a disciplinary meeting. I nodded. Okay. We've become aware that several employees have expressed concerns regarding perceived favoritism. The word perceived caught my attention. She wasn't accusing anyone. She was acknowledging the rumors. I understand. I'd like to hear your perspective. I took a slow breath. We've met outside work by coincidence. Anything romantic? No. It wasn't entirely a lie. Nothing had happened. Not technically. Claire studied my expression. Has Mr. Brooks ever offered you advantages unavailable to other employees? No. Promotions? No. Salary adjustments? No. Special treatment? I answered without hesitation. Actually, he expects more from me than anyone else. A faint smile crossed her face. Eva noticed. She opened a folder. Your promotion was recommended by 3 department managers before Adrian signed off. She turned the paperwork toward me. Every recommendation had been documented weeks before anyone saw us together. Evidence. Objective. Fair. Relief washed over me. So, I'm satisfied there hasn't been any misconduct. My shoulders relaxed for the first time all morning. But, Claire continued gently, perception matters almost as much as reality. I know. For your sake, and his, I'd recommend creating some distance. The words stung because they echoed exactly what Adrian had warned me about late that afternoon. Adrian asked me to stop by his office. He closed the door behind me. I spoke with Claire. So did I. He sighed.
I'm sorry.
I frowned. For what? I should have been more careful. You didn't do anything wrong. I know. He walked toward the window overlooking downtown Seattle. But leadership isn't only about doing the right thing. It's about making sure people believe you did. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, he turned back toward me. I've made a decision. Something about his tone made my stomach drop. I'm removing myself from the Horizon campaign. What? Another executive will oversee it. You built that campaign. And now someone else will finish it. Because of me?
No.
His answer came too quickly. Adrian. He looked away. Because protecting this company sometimes means sacrificing something you care about. The sentence carried more weight than the campaign alone. I wasn't sure whether he realized it. The following weeks felt completely different. Professional. Cold. Necessary. Meetings became shorter. Emails replaced conversations. If we happened to pass each other in the hallway, Adrian offered the same polite nod he gave everyone else.
No lingering conversations. No rooftop lunches. No bookstores.
No weekend markets. Nothing. Exactly what we'd agreed to. Exactly what we both hated. Noah noticed first. You look miserable. I'm just tired. You've alphabetized your snack drawer. I like organization. You've never liked organization. I sighed. It's complicated. You like him. The words hung in the air. I never said that. You didn't have to. He leaned back in his chair. The question isn't whether you like him. It's whether you're willing to lose this job for him. I didn't answer, because I honestly didn't know. 3 weeks later, the Horizon campaign launched. The presentation was held in front of clients, investors, and the entire executive team. Months of work came down to 1 hour. I stood at the front of the room, explaining the campaign's message about belonging and chosen family. As I spoke, confidence slowly replaced my nerves. When I finished, silence, then applause. Real applause. The clients loved it. The campaign was approved immediately. People surrounded me with congratulations. One by one, they drifted away. Eventually, only Adrian remained. He waited until everyone else had left the room. Then he walked over. You were extraordinary. I smiled. So were you. I wasn't part of this. You were. He looked confused. You believed in the idea before anyone else did. For a moment, his professional mask slipped. He looked proud. Not possessive. Not romantic. Simply proud. I always knew you could do this. Before I could respond, someone entered the room. Adrian stepped back immediately. The distance between us returned. That evening, Seattle was drenched in rain. I left the office carrying a backpack over one shoulder, heading toward the parking garage. Halfway across the nearly empty lot, I heard footsteps behind me. Ethan. I turned. Adrian stood beneath a black umbrella. Rain soaked the pavement around us. I've been thinking. I know. No. Really thinking. He looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. I spent years convincing myself that work had to come before everything else. I listened quietly, and now I'm about to make the same mistake again. The rain grew heavier. Cars splashed through nearby streets. I don't regret meeting you. His voice was almost lost beneath the storm. I regret pretending I don't want to know you. My heart pounded. Adrian, I won't ask you to hide. I won't ask you to wait. I won't risk your career. He swallowed. But I needed you to know the truth. He took one slow step closer. I've fallen in love with you. The world seemed to stop. Every fear I'd carried for weeks disappeared beneath the weight of those 6 words. Before I could answer, a camera flash exploded across the parking garage. Both of us turned instantly. A man stood near the entrance, lowering a professional camera. Another flash, then another. My blood ran cold. One of the city's biggest business blogs was notorious for chasing stories about Seattle executives. The photographer smiled. I think this is tomorrow's headline. He turned and ran toward the street. Adrian instinctively started after him. I grabbed his arm. It's too late. The photographer disappeared into the rain. Adrian looked back at me, his face pale. Neither of us spoke. We both understood exactly what was coming next. By sunrise, our private lives would no longer belong to us. Neither of us slept that night. At 6:30 the next morning, my phone buzzed before I even got out of bed. Noah, call me. Right now. A second notification appeared. Then a third. Then 20 more. I opened the first link with shaking hands. A Seattle business blog had published a grainy photo of Adrian and me standing together in the parking garage. The headline read, Brooks creative CEO in late-night meeting with employee after weeks of rumors. The article didn't accuse us of anything illegal. It didn't need to. It asked questions, suggested possibilities, left readers to fill in the blanks. Within an hour, other websites had copied the story. By the time I reached the office, everyone had already seen it. The atmosphere inside Brooks Creative felt nothing like home anymore. Employees whispered in corners. Phones lit up with news alerts. Conversations stopped whenever I walked past. Some people looked sympathetic. Others looked disappointed. A few refused to look at me at all. Claire met me in the lobby. Ethan. I know. She nodded gently. The executive team is already meeting. Am I being fired?
No.
But today is going to be difficult. An hour later, every employee received an invitation to an all-company meeting. The entire staff gathered in the auditorium. Nearly 200 people filled the room. The conversations faded as Adrian walked onto the stage. He looked tired, but his voice remained steady. I know many of you have questions. He didn't hide behind corporate language. He didn't blame the media. He didn't pretend nothing had happened. The reports you've read are based on photographs taken outside the office. He paused. I want to address this openly because you've earned honesty from me. The room was completely silent. Ethan Carter has never received special treatment. He gestured toward the executive team. Every promotion, every performance review, and every opportunity he received was recommended and documented by multiple managers before I approved them. Claire nodded in agreement. Several department heads did the same. Adrian continued. I understand why appearances have raised concerns. Leadership requires accountability. And because of that, he took a slow breath. I've submitted my resignation as CEO, effective once the board appoints my successor. The room erupted. What? No way. He's resigning? I stared at him in disbelief. No, absolutely not. This wasn't supposed to happen. Someone from the board stood. Mr. Brooks. Adrian gently raised a hand. This decision is mine. I built this company, and I won't allow questions about my personal life to damage the trust we've spent years earning. My chest tightened. He was giving up everything. Again, just like he'd done in his last relationship. Except this time, he wasn't sacrificing love. He was sacrificing his position. The meeting ended in stunned silence. I hurried toward his office. The door was already open. He was packing books into a cardboard box. You can't do this. He looked up. I already have. This isn't fair.
No.
But it's necessary. I stepped closer. You told me once that you lost someone because work always came first. His hands stopped moving. Don't make the opposite mistake. He frowned. What do you mean? I don't want you to throw away your life's work because of me. Ethan, I love you. The words escaped before fear could stop them. His eyes widened. I've been trying not to. I've been trying to be responsible. I've been trying to pretend this doesn't matter. It does. The room fell silent. I love you too, he whispered. It was the first time we'd said the words to each other. Not in a parking garage. Not in secret. Not because of fear. Just the truth. 2 days later, the board of directors announced its decision. After completing an independent review, they found no evidence of unethical conduct, favoritism, or abuse of authority. Every promotion, every evaluation, every project assignment, everything had been properly documented. The investigation cleared both of us completely. But the board also acknowledged that a romantic relationship between a CEO and a direct report employee created an unavoidable conflict of interest. Adrian's resignation wasn't required. Instead, they offered another solution. I would transfer to Brooks Creative's newly opened Portland office as creative director. It was a promotion I'd already qualified for through the success of the Horizon campaign. The position would remove the reporting relationship entirely. No ethical conflict. No special treatment. No questions about fairness. Claire smiled when she told me, "Sometimes the right answer isn't choosing between love and your career. It's changing the situation so you don't have to." 3 months later, Portland felt surprisingly familiar. Rainy mornings, independent coffee shops, tree-lined streets. The new office was smaller, closer, mine to help build. The work challenged me every day. More importantly, I knew I'd earned it. Adrian visited occasionally for board meetings, but never entered my office during business hours. Professional boundaries still mattered. Now they were simply easier to maintain. Outside work, everything slowly became normal. Or at least, our version of normal. We cooked dinner together, argued over whose turn it was to wash dishes, spent Sunday mornings wandering farmers markets, read books on opposite ends of the couch. The quiet moments became my favorites, because they weren't dramatic. They were real. One rainy evening, almost a year after we first met at Pulse, Adrian asked if I wanted to revisit the club. I laughed. "You mean the place that nearly gave me a heart attack?" "The very one." The music was just as loud. The lights were just as bright. Only this time, neither of us felt the need to hide. We walked in side by side. No secrets. No pretending. No fear of being seen together. Near the dance floor, I smiled at him. "Remember what you said the first night?" He tilted his head. "What happens outside the office stays outside the office." I nodded. He laughed softly. "I was wrong. I know." He reached for my hand. This time I took it without hesitation. "Some things," he said, his eyes never leaving mine, "are worth bringing into the light." The song changed. He offered me his hand with a quiet smile. "May I have this dance?" I smiled back. "I was hoping you'd ask." As we stepped onto the dance floor, surrounded by strangers who were simply living their own lives, I realized something that had taken me years to understand. Love wasn't about perfect timing. It wasn't about avoiding every obstacle. And it certainly wasn't about hiding who you were. It was about finding someone who respected your dreams as much as your heart. Someone who chose honesty over convenience. Someone who stood beside you, not because life was easy, but because you were both willing to do the hard work together. The first night I saw my boss at a gay club, I thought my career was over. I never imagined it would be the night my real life finally began. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more emotional gay romance stories with unforgettable characters and happy endings. Tell me in the comments,